The story begins on a national highway where a serial killer is chasing his next victim. After catching up, he deliberately crashes into the victim's car. Instead of arguing or checking on the accident, the man immediately starts taking photos of the damage so he can use them for an insurance claim. The killer tells him to stop, but when the man refuses to listen, he brutally stabs him to death. The story then shifts to a police officer named Tai-suk, who arrives at the crime scene to investigate. While examining the area, he notices the damaged rear section of the victim's car and takes photographs of it as evidence. Next, the focus moves to Dong-soo, a powerful gang leader who has come to meet the boss of a rival gang. While the two leaders are talking, their subordinates suddenly start arguing and fighting. Dong-soo hates this kind of disrespect. He immediately knocks down one of his own men with a punch, then pulls a tooth out of a rival gang member's mouth and drops it into a glass of wine. Calmly, he says that children should never interrupt when adults are talking. Seeing Dong-soo's terrifying side, the rival gang leader becomes frightened and drinks the wine containing the tooth. The two gangs then successfully finalize their deal. Meanwhile, back at the police station, Tai-suk shows several crime scene photos to his superiors. He explains that similar murders have been happening across the city and that all the evidence points to a serial killer. However, his senior officers ignore his theory and angrily dismiss him from the room. Later, Dong-soo is driving home after the meeting when another car suddenly crashes into his vehicle from behind. Thinking it is just a normal accident, he lets the driver go, but the moment he sits back inside his car, the stranger attacks him with a knife. The attacker is the same serial killer responsible for the recent murders. Unlike his previous victims, however, Dong-soo refuses to go down easily. A brutal struggle follows, and the killer is actually stabbed in the chest during the fight before managing to escape. Dong-soo is rushed to the hospital. When his men see his condition, they immediately assume that the rival gang is responsible and launch attacks against them. Meanwhile, instead of seeking medical treatment, the serial killer stitches up his own chest using a stapler, steals an elderly man's clothes, and disappears without a trace. The next day, Dong-soo regains consciousness. He tells his men that the attacker was not connected to any rival gang, but a completely different person. Determined to find him, Dong-soo orders his crew to track the man down and even provides the license plate number of the attacker's car. To continue his investigation, Tai-suk visits Dong-soo and asks why he never reported the attack to the police. Dong-soo casually replies that he usually knows more than the police do. Hearing that, Tai-suk leaves, but not before taking photos of Dong-soo's damaged car as evidence. Meanwhile, Dong-soo has a sketch of the attacker created and orders his men to find the serial killer before the police can. At the same time, the killer murders a truck driver and steals his truck. Later, he spots another victim and kills him as well, but during the attack, he accidentally leaves his knife behind on the road. Tai-suk is highly intelligent and has already figured out that the same serial killer who committed the murders also attacked Dong-soo. He wants to question him further, but getting access to a powerful crime boss is not easy. To force a meeting, Tai-suk orders raids on several of Dong-soo's hideouts. Eventually, Dong-soo agrees to meet him. During their conversation, Tai-suk reveals that he knows a serial killer was responsible for the attack. Dong-soo already knows this, but the incident has seriously damaged his reputation. People no longer fear him the way they used to, and his authority has started to weaken. Determined to restore his image, Dong-soo becomes obsessed with finding the killer. Soon, Dong-soo's men discover the killer's car along with the knife he accidentally left behind. Since Tai-suk already has evidence connected to Dong-soo, the gang leader decides to share the information with him. The two strike a deal. Whoever finds the serial killer first gets to deal with him. Although they agree to work together, their goals are completely different. Dong-soo wants revenge and intends to kill the murderer himself, while Tai-suk wants to arrest him and bring him to justice through the law. Following Dong-soo's instructions, Tai-suk takes the killer's sketch and the recovered knife to another one of Dong-soo's properties, where the vehicle and other evidence were found. From there, he collects DNA samples and officially begins a deeper investigation into the killer's identity. Meanwhile, Dong-soo has another problem to handle. The rival gang leader from the beginning of the story has started taking advantage of Dong-soo's declining influence and weakening influence. Furious about this disrespect, Dong-soo sends his men to eliminate the rival before the situation gets any worse. Dong-soo cleverly hands over the very knife that belonged to the serial killer, making it appear as if the murder was committed by the killer rather than by him. When the DNA results arrive, the investigators discover that all of the recent murders are connected to the same person. As a result, the entire police department begins hunting for the serial killer. After learning the truth, Tai-suk storms over to Dong-soo and starts arguing with him. He has figured out that Dong-soo murdered his rival and deliberately used the killer's knife to shift the blame. Instead of denying it, Dong-soo teaches him a harsh lesson and tells him that the reason behind his actions motivations will become clear very soon. One day, while the serial killer is eating at a restaurant, he hears news that someone has committed a murder using his knife. Furious that another person is taking advantage of his reputation, he becomes enraged. Later, he attends the gang leader's funeral, where he notices the victim's photograph and is briefly reminded of his own past. Before leaving, the killer hands one of the gang members a note. The message says that the gang leader was indeed killed with his knife, but he was not the one who committed the murder. He also mentions Dong-Su's name before disappearing. That same night, the killer claims another victim, adding yet another body to his growing list of murders. Meanwhile, Tae-sok and Dong-Su continue their uneasy partnership and set out together to track down the murderer. While examining the killer's abandoned vehicle, they discover a fingerprint. However, before they can investigate it further, a member of a rival gang suddenly attacks them. Working together, the two quickly eliminate the threat. Sometime later, the fingerprint analysis report finally arrives. Tae-sok discovers that the print belongs to a man who had already been reported missing. Hoping to find more clues, he visits the missing man's house. Inside, every room is filled with medicine bottles and family photographs. While searching the house, he finds a picture of the same man whose face appeared in the sketch created by Dong-Su. At that moment, Tae-sok realizes the shocking truth. The missing man is the serial killer they have been searching for all along. With a confirmed identity at last, he immediately begins gathering every piece of information he can find about the suspect. At the same time, Dong-Su attends an important meeting. Because of the attack against him, his reputation has weakened and nobody takes his word seriously anymore. Members of the opposing side openly laugh and mock him. Dong-Su remains calm for a moment, but when one of them goes too far, he suddenly explodes with anger and repeatedly slaps the man in front of everyone, reminding them that he is still a force to be feared. Meanwhile, Tae-sok receives a voice recording from the police department. After listening to it, he immediately sends it to Dong-Su. The recording confirms their suspicions and proves that they have finally identified the serial killer. As Tae-sok digs deeper into the case, he discovers the reason behind the killer's endless string of murders. During his childhood, the man was constantly abused and tortured by his father. The trauma left him mentally disturbed, eventually turning him into a ruthless murderer. Determined to find him, Dong-Su distributes the killer's photo to all of his men while continuing to work alongside Tae-sok. His entire organization begins searching every corner of the city, but despite their efforts, the killer remains impossible to find. One rainy day, Dong-Su is standing at a bus stop with an umbrella, waiting because his car is broken down. Nearby, a young woman is getting soaked in the rain. Seeing this, Dong-Su quietly offers her his umbrella. At first, she hesitates, unsure of his intentions, but eventually accepts the gesture. Just then, Tae-sok arrives and jokingly warns her not to accept things from strangers because they could be criminals. The girl looks at him and replies that he seems more like a criminal than Dong-Su. Hearing that, Dong-Su bursts out laughing. The girl thanks him for the umbrella and boards the bus. What nobody realizes is that the serial killer is also sitting on that same bus. Later that evening, Dong-Su is having dinner with his men when a news report appears on television. The report reveals that a young woman has been murdered. The moment Dong-Su sees the umbrella shown in the report, he recognizes it instantly. It belonged to the same girl he helped that morning. Realizing that the serial killer murdered her, Dong-Su becomes furious. This time, the crime feels personal. He swears that he will never let the killer walk away alive. Dong-Su immediately mobilizes his men and begins searching for the murderer. The search leads them through dark alleys and eventually to a hotel. There, they discover an important clue. The serial killer has been staying in that very hotel. Upon hearing this, Dong-Su prepares an ambush. However, when the killer approaches the hotel later that night, he notices an unusual silence surrounding the area. His instincts tell him that something is wrong. Instead of stopping, he keeps driving and attempts to escape. The moment Dong-Su realizes this, he, Tae-sok, and several gang members begin chasing the killer. During the pursuit, they split up and head in different directions. The serial killer eventually encounters one of Dong-Su's men and kills him. Before dying, however, the gang member manages to contact Dong-Su and tell him that he wounded the killer. The murderer is bleeding heavily. Following the trail of blood, Dong-Su tracks the killer to a nearby bar. As he enters, he notices a singer performing on stage. Something feels off. The girl appears nervous and frightened, as if she's being forced to continue singing under pressure. At that moment, Dong-Su realizes that the serial killer is somewhere inside the building, and another innocent life may be in danger. The final confrontation is now closer than ever. The frightened singer secretly signals to Dong-Su that the serial killer is hiding inside the building. Understanding her message, Dong-Su quietly sneaks in and manages to capture the killer. He then takes him to one of his farmhouses. Meanwhile, Tae-sek realizes that Dong-Su Dong-soo has already caught the murderer. He immediately calls him and demands that he hand the killer over to the police. However, Dong-soo reminds him of their agreement. Whoever found the killer first would get to decide his fate. After saying that, he hangs up the phone. Back at the farmhouse, Dong-soo begins interrogating the killer. Instead of answering any questions, the murderer simply sits there laughing. Furious, Dong-soo decides to tear him apart and asks him one final question. Why did he kill that innocent girl? When no answer comes, Dong-soo prepares to kill him. Just then, Tae-sek suddenly arrives with a police team and crashes into the place. Before Dong-soo can carry out his revenge, Tae-sek takes the killer into custody and transports him to the police station. When Tae-sek arrives with the serial killer, everyone at the station praises him for capturing the city's most wanted criminal. The killer is locked behind bars, and for the first time, it seems like the nightmare may finally be over. The next day, Tae-sek orders raids on all of Dong-soo's hideouts. Surprisingly, Dong-soo remains calm. He no longer cares about gang politics or police pressure. The only thing on his mind is the murdered girl. He wants the killer dead, no matter what it takes. Meanwhile, Tae-sek tries to force a confession out of the murderer. However, the killer is extremely intelligent and has extensive medical knowledge. He deliberately damages and alters his fingerprints, making it harder for the police to connect him to the crimes. No matter how much pressure Tae-sek applies, the killer refuses to confess. Eventually, Tae-sek loses his temper and physically attacks him, but even then, the murderer remains silent. Frustrated and running out of options, Tae-sek visits Dong-soo and explains the situation. He tells him that if they cannot produce solid evidence, the serial killer could walk free. Hearing this, Dong-soo explodes with anger. He blames Tae-sek for everything and says that if the police had not interfered, the killer would already be dead. Tae-sek argues that dwelling on the past will not solve anything and that they need to come up with a new plan. Dong-soo throws him out, but after calming down, he begins thinking of a way to finish the matter once and for all. The following day, the serial killer is brought before the court. Standing in front of the judge, he puts on an innocent act and claims that he is a quiet, socially awkward person because his father abused him throughout his childhood. He argues that being mentally scarred doesn't make him a murderer and insists that he is being falsely accused. Because the prosecution lacks enough evidence, the victims' families begin crying in despair. It looks as though the killer might actually escape punishment. Then, in the middle of the hearing, the defense lawyer requests that a surviving victim, the one person who was attacked but lived, be brought into the courtroom. The serial killer smirks confidently, believing there is no witness capable of identifying him, but he has no idea that the person about to walk into those courtroom doors is someone he never expected to see. But the victim survived. And then comes the most unexpected moment of the story. Dong-soo enters the courtroom. Standing before the judge, Dong-soo confidently states that the man on trial is the real serial killer and that he also attacked him personally. The killer's lawyer immediately objects, arguing that Dong-soo is a mafia boss and that his testimony cannot be trusted. Controlling his anger, Dong-soo responds by saying that if the same tragedy had happened to the lawyer's own family, he would understand the pain of the victims. Meanwhile, the killer remains calm and secretly pleased because he believes there is still no solid evidence linking him to the murders. However, Dong-soo has come prepared. He presents the sketch that was created immediately after the attack and explains that it was based on the face of the man who stabbed him. Then he produces the mysterious letter left at the gang leader's funeral. The letter stated that the murder was committed with the killer's knife. Dong-soo reveals only part of the message because he intentionally tore away the section that said, "But I wasn't the one who did it." Next, Dong-soo removes his shirt and shows the scars he received during the attack. He tells the court that while defending himself, he managed to stab the killer in the chest. If the accused is truly the attacker, that wound should still be visible. The court orders an examination, and exactly as Dong-soo claimed, the scar is still there. At that moment, the killer realizes that his perfect plan has finally fallen apart. With the evidence and testimony now connecting him to the crimes, the court finds him guilty and sentences him to death. Dong-soo also receives a reduced sentence because he eventually surrendered himself and cooperated with the authorities. Thanks to Dong-soo's testimony, Tae-suk is welcomed back into the police department as well. Since he played a major role in capturing the serial killer, he's rewarded with a higher position and earns the respect he always deserved. Near the end of the movie, a new prisoner is shown entering the prison. The inmates lower their heads in fear and respect as he walks through the cell block. The serial killer, who is already imprisoned there, looks up and is shocked. The new inmate is none other than Dong-soo. The story then flashes back to the moment when Tae-suk asked Dong-soo for help. At that time, Dong-soo had only one condition. He wanted to be sent to the same prison where the serial killer would be held. Back in the present, Dong-soo slowly approaches the prison showers with a rope in his hand. The killer, seeing him walk closer, immediately understands what is about to happen. For the first time in the entire movie, the murderer looks truly terrified. He realizes that the game is over. And with that chilling final scene, the story comes to an end. If you enjoyed this movie recap, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching.